to Our Future is Kind, a podcast exploring how we build the future we want to live in, one kind act at a time. I'm your host, Michael G. president of Our Future is Kind, and your trusted companion as we search out kindness strategies we can use in our everyday lives. Together, as we chase the idea of building a kinder future, we will interview experts in kindness, team building, human motivation, corporate culture building, relationships, plus politicians, artists, and those with a vision for a healthy and kind future, one we all want to live in and deserve to enjoy together. In addition to interviews, we will consider positive depictions of humanity's future in art, literature, movies, and media. And we will issue kindness challenges each week, give an update about Our Future is Kind, the company, and what it's doing to stay true to its mission. So, let's dive in. Welcome back, everybody, to Our Future is Kind podcast. I'm Michael Neese. I'm your host. In episode 000, which is the one immediately before this, we had Natalie Siston as our guest host. She was fabulous. I really enjoy speaking with her. She has such a great view of humanity and how to support other people. And so we'll definitely have her back. She's a friend of the program, and look forward to future episodes with her. In this episode 001, I wanted to talk a little bit more about what this podcast is about, and very, very specifically, why is it important to create a target so that we know what we're aiming for when it comes to a kinder future? I also want to give you a rough outline of what it is that I envision as my personal ideal future. It may not exactly align with what's really going to happen or with what your future is, but that's the fun part of this program, is that I really encourage you to lean in, get some ideas from me, disagree, send me emails, we can chat. Maybe you could even come onto the program, but at the end of the day, I think it's a healthy dialogue to have, one that is about what should the ideal future be. And so I figure if you don't know what the baseline is, if you don't know what I think about that kinder future, if you have no idea what I'm thinking, then how can we have a really good conversation? So that's what we're going to do during this episode. Just so you know, before we dig in, future episodes, we're definitely going to have some experts on. We're going to have futurists. We're going to have economists and ethicists, politicians, artists, writers. We're going to have all kinds of people who are great at thinking about what a future should look like and could look like. So they can talk about that, and they can also talk about what kind acts can get us to their versions of that kinder future. Also, in some other future episodes, we're going to have doers. We're going to have people who have been kind and who are willing to let me put them on the spot to talk about what were those kind acts that they engaged in so that they could help other people. They could help humanity. They could help us build that more beautiful, that kinder future. So let's dig in. Why is it so important to set up what a target is for the future? Well, put very bluntly, time is falling into our laps moment on moment, and a lot of us are very mindless. We go into this autopilot mode, and we're just trying to get through the day, get on the bus, get to work, do the work thing, get home, put dinner on the table, take care of kids, take care of older adults, do the things that we need to do to survive. And we get lost in the fact that every action that we make, every action that we take, it leaves an echo, right? It has a ripple effect. It goes out to other people. So when I'm getting on that bus to try to go to work, if I'm smiling at people as I'm waiting for the bus, if as I get onto the bus, I talk to the bus driver and say, "Hey, how are you? It's good to see you. All right, I'm so excited. It's going to be a great day." That's a really different interaction than if I were to be glum and sort of lost in my own world and my own thoughts. But I think it's so easy for us to just get lost and to get into that autopilot mode and to forget that we are having an effect on everyone around us and everything around us. So setting up a target and thinking about what could the world look like? What could our future look like? What are we leaving behind for future generations? That's incredibly powerful, because once you've outlined that, then you can aim for it, right? If you don't have a target, it's really hard to shoot at the target. So let's establish what that target should look like and what it could look like. I'm a very firm believer. I don't know if you've ever heard this concept that there are three deaths, right? There are three times that we die. The first is when you have your last conscious thought on this world. The second is when the last person who ever knew you, who's still alive, when they die, right? Nobody is left who actually knew you, so they can't talk about you anymore. The third death is when your name is spoken aloud for the last time. I think that's really powerful. I think it's really interesting and neat. But I think it actually, I think it needs to be amended. Maybe we get rid of the third one, or maybe we just simply tack on a fourth one. But my idea is that there is a fourth death. And that is when all of the cluster of actions that you have taken in this world, all of the kindnesses that you have implemented, when the echoes of all of those kindnesses have spilled forth into a chain of people who've received those kindnesses and then folded it into their own kindness practice. It's when those last echoes of something that we have done are gone. So imagine that sometime 1,000 years from now, the last person in a very long line of recipients of kindness that started with you, that last person has passed away and didn't do a kind act for anybody. It's almost impossible to think of that, right? Because every time I do something that's kind, for instance, if I'm paying for my children's college tuition, if I am writing an evaluation for somebody so that they can hopefully get a job, if I have selected a business very carefully so that I am honoring somebody who's local, who's a small business, and I really want to support this neighbor of mine rather than one of these large conglomerates. When I've done these actions, well, now that person or those people, they've felt the kindness. And maybe they felt a lot of other kindnesses from other people, so it kind of combines together. It blends together in this stream of kindness. But mine is in there somewhere, and that kindness flows out to other people. Well, think of all the people that you've helped. Think of all of the people that you've affected during your lifetime just up until today, and think of all the people that you will affect. So imagine that sometime, maybe 10,000 years from now, your kindness is still echoing through humanity. The things you do today that you have no idea how big an impact it has. You hand money to somebody who doesn't have a home so that they can go and buy a good meal. And from that good meal, they feel energized and they are able to go and take care of something or someone that you can see where I'm going with this, right? So imagine then that if we are deliberate, if we're mindful, if we're thoughtful about how we're building our kind actions one upon another, then we can build an intentional future as opposed to this haphazard one that just happens when we get on the bus, go to work, do the work thing, get back on the bus, come home, make the meal, right? So let's think about that. Making a target is really important. Now, my own version of a kinder future, what is that? Well, I was raised in a household where I was taught that anybody can be anything, and that if you have the right support, if you have kindness, if you have the right resources, if you have the right mentors and guides and teachers along the way, the right cheerleaders at the right times, that you can go and do extraordinary things. And so, in a future that's ideal for me, it's one where everybody has that. I understand that I was raised in a home of privilege. I was not particularly wealthy. My family isn't wealthy, but we are not poor. And I've never wanted for food. I've never wanted for shelter. And I know that's not the case for a lot of humanity. So, in an ideal, kinder future, that's been obliterated. We do not have poverty and we don't have people who are in want of basic necessities. So, in a kinder future, what are those basic necessities that everybody suddenly has, and they don't have to they don't have to debate it. They don't have, there's no dispute about whether or not they're worthy of these things. These people brought it on themselves isn't one of those mantras that's being spoken by anyone. And so people are receiving all of the things that they need when it comes to food, when it comes to shelter and clothing and healthcare and education. Gosh, when you say words like healthcare, it sounds like this big, cumbersome thing, but think about it. You get a hangnail, you suddenly have a cough, you have a rash that's on your elbow. I mean, you have something that's going on with your body. Your body is the one thing that keeps transforming and translating you from one scenario in your life to the next. And so your body is this one thing you have to take really good care of. So if you have that cough, if you have that rash, if you have an ache or a pain or something really bad is going on, you deserve to be cared for. You deserve to be cared about. You deserve to have the medical care that it takes to make sure that you are healthy. This goes for your physical being, this goes for your emotional self, right? So if you need a therapist, therapy is great. It is something that it's the best money I've ever spent on myself or anybody in my family. The idea that we are more in tune with ourselves and we are more helpful to our own, community because we are healthier and feeling better. That means that I can do more and I can be more helpful to other people. But it also is just something, it's something you, as one of my audience members, you deserve this. You deserve kindness. You deserve this care for your body. And that includes things like having food and having clean water to drink and clean air to breathe. It means that you have all of these basic necessities taken care of. If there is great knowledge that came to us from artists, philosophers, scientists, theologians, you should know all of the things that you want to know about and all of the things that give you a basic baseline of being competent within our society. And so, in my ideal future, the kindest future that I can envision, it's one where people are not destitute. It's one where we as humans are attempting to help each other in any ways that we can. And it basically means then that we can't have people hoarding resources while other people are going hungry. We can't have people hoarding resources so that they can have mega yachts while other people don't have a basic home, right? They have to live in a tent or even a cardboard box or under a bridge. That's nuts. That's absolutely unconscionable. And so in the best possible future, we would also have, with all of those things rectified, we would also have the opportunity to then produce more art and literature. We'd have a chance to explore and expand out away from our planet Earth and into our own solar system and into our own Milky Way galaxy and possibly even beyond the Milky Way galaxy, in the very far-flung future. Maybe we have technologies that have been invented where people can go through a portal and suddenly you're in the Andromeda galaxy. Wow, what a great thing to think about rather than wondering if I am worthy of having food tonight or having lodging or having education or healthcare, right? So I always love to point to the world of Star Trek. A lot of people who know me laugh because they know that this is always my reference point. For those of you who love Star Wars, don't worry, I got your back too. I love Star Wars. I just don't see that as being a blueprint for what the future of humanity could be like. After all, it is in a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. So that's fantasy and it's fun and it's amazing storytelling, but it's not a blueprint. Star Trek is a blueprint. Think of the Starship Enterprise, where you have Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock and Lieutenant Uhura, and all of these great, curious, very smart, very sophisticated human beings in 300 or 400 years from today. Everybody of good conscience, everybody who is trying, everybody who is wanting to be a participant in the society in a positive way, that they are heard, that they're seen, that they're listened to. Even those who are not necessarily participating in a positive way, they are at least noticed and cared for, cared about, and they are not allowed to harm others. But think about the business where you work. Think about your job. If you're hiring somebody, it's because they have a skill set and you really want to capitalize on that skill set. You want to let them know that you care about their experience, their background, their knowledge, their moments of inspiration where they can come to you with a really cool new idea. Every single person needs to be heard. If you have a meeting that's filled with 12 people and only two people get to talk, that's probably not a good thing. It means that most likely, unless it's an informational meeting, most likely people are not being heard and they're not being valued in some very significant way. And so, in the future that I love, I've already mentioned Star Trek, just the idea that if you have people from a huge variety of backgrounds, they're going to bring with them really cool perspectives and helpful perspectives. Somebody who comes from the heartland of America is not necessarily going to see things in the same way as somebody from Siberia, who's not going to see things exactly the same way as somebody from Ethiopia, who's not going to see things the same way as somebody from South Africa, right? I mean, you have different perspectives in the room for a lot of reasons. And so that's part of the future that I really love and want to see come to fruition. Because if you feel like you arrive in the future and you are devalued, you're not seen as human, you're not seen as being as valid a member of a team or a community, then that is harsh and that is painful and that is unkind. And that is not part of the future that I want. The kind of future that I want is, like I said, Star Trek. You have Next Generation, where you have all different kinds of people who are participating positively and trying to give each other really good perspectives. One of the newer Star Trek series is Star Trek Discovery. And there's a moment where there's this captain, Captain Pike, who is interrupted in the middle of an emergency situation by somebody who has a really important idea. And he says, "We've got to table that for a minute. I've got to focus on this other thing." And this other person says, "I don't think we can table this. You have to hear me now." And it's amazing because he actually does. He stops and he says, "Okay, tell me what it is." And it is important and it is something that's valid that needs to be heard in that moment. How many times have you been at a company where you are trying to get information through to a leader who doesn't seem to want to hear you? That's not what my ideal future looks like. My ideal future looks more like that moment with Captain Pike and somebody trying to chime in with vital information that matters in that moment. So yeah, that's a big piece of what I want the future to be, is that if you are a kid, if you are a senior citizen, if you are part of a group that typically is not listened to at the same level as someone of great privilege, that needs to be eradicated. That needs to be something completely changed. Otherwise, that ideal future falls short on so many different levels. So that's a big piece of what I think the future should be like. If you've ever heard of the veil of ignorance, John Rawls is an American philosopher who came up with this very cool idea of how you can redesign or design from scratch a society and have it be fair and have it be one that is equitable. And it's very simple. You can have several people, you included, who all get to decide, what does this future, or sorry, what does this society look like? And the trick is that you don't get to know which role you play in society. So you could have a society where there's a royal family and a million serfs, lots of peasants who can then support them and, make all of the things, do all the things, and then give their riches to the royal family. But once you get inserted into that new reality, You don't get to pick, right? That's the veil of ignorance, is that you pull the veil back and you find out, oh no, I'm one of the peasants. Well, that's a problem. So, how do you really develop a great equitable society? Well, you try to give one that gives everybody decent odds. It doesn't mean that people are going to capitalize on those. It doesn't mean that everybody puts in the same effort. It doesn't mean that everybody has the same extraordinary brain or brawn or whatever it is that could propel them toward some kind of great future. But it means that even the least among us, I'm putting air quotes there for those of you who are just listening in, the least among us is just a bizarre concept. But there are people who think in terms of, well, there are greater humans and there are lesser humans. Gosh, if you're thinking about the veil of ignorance and trying to create that great society, you're not really thinking in terms of greater and lesser. You're thinking in terms of, how do I give everybody a fair shot? So, all of these things taken into account, this is what my future looks like. And now here's how you fit in. Here's how I want you to participate in this discussion. Our Future is Kind is going to embrace you and your ideas and your thoughts because you matter. You matter on a scale that you probably don't even think about on a day-to-day basis. There are those who have done the research and figured out that in all of human history, there have been approximately 108 to 117 billion humans. It's a lot. It seems like an awful lot. There are what, maybe 8 billion or so currently on the earth alive and well, right? So if let's say that there are 108 billion-ish humans, 108 billion, and 8 billion of those are still alive, it means that you have more power than the other 100 million who are no longer with us. You can actually affect day-to-day changes. You can make somebody smile. You can buy somebody that bowl of soup and help them out, right? You can help somebody at your workplace so that they know how to do the work better and they feel more secure and more confident. You can be that mentor to somebody. You can be that great instrumentalist who teaches somebody how to play their instrument better by observing how they do it, by taking your own expertise, and then gifting them with a bit of knowledge of how to improve. The people who have already come and gone, the people who have already lived and died, can't do that anymore. Yes, they do have some kind of ripple effect from some of them, right? Those who were great artists, those who were great thinkers, those who left behind literature for us, such as the Bible or the Quran or the Torah and so forth, they left behind some kind of a legacy. And so those ideas do have impact today, just like Galileo, just like Socrates and Aristotle and all of the great thinkers of the past. So you have a lot of power that's beyond what they have because they can't interact with us anymore. And all of the future humans, the ones who haven't arrived yet, you have way more power than they do, unless they have time machines and they can come back here, which I don't know. Maybe they can. But what I want you to realize is that you have a lot of agency. Every time you have an interaction with another human, you can be bravely kind. And that means that if somebody is scowling at you, you can make the choice to smile back at them. Not ironically, not in a way to poke at them, but you can smile at them and say, "Hey, how are you doing? How's the day going? Hope things improve. Hope you're doing okay." Right? The people that you work with, these are people who are sometimes very driven and very excited and they're doing fine. But even those people, sometimes they just need to take a break, and taking a break with them and making them feel better about, oh, right. Yeah. I sometimes get so involved in my work. I forgot that I can have interactions with other humans. This is great. So I want you to remember that you matter. And I want you to think, what is your ideal future? What is that kinder, better future? And how are you on a daily, weekly, yearly basis making some kind of contribution to that brighter, bolder, more exciting, kinder future? Are you sweating it over politics? We just had an election in the United States, and I know a lot of people are very upset or they're very, very happy. It's one or the other. But I would encourage you to think in terms of if your guy won or if your candidate didn't win, what are you doing to make the world better? I can guarantee that if you voted one way or the other in this election, or if the election didn't matter to you either way, I can guarantee you that you care about certain things and that you have the ability to affect those. You can help your family members. You can help your friends. You can learn a new language and reach out to a whole new community. You can learn how to cook and you can help people by making more meals. There's so many things that you can do in this world, and you have the agency to make those changes. If you feel like you need to run for political office, go do that. My only point here is that I want you to think about what that kinder, better future could be. I want you to reach out to me. I want you to find me on LinkedIn or through the show notes for this. And I want you to say, hey, here's what I think the future is. I don't think it's Star Trek. I think it's this other thing. Hey, Michael, you haven't really addressed AI. What if AI takes over everything? And then where, how do we fit into all of it? Bring me those kinds of questions. Bring me your ideas. I would love to hear who you think I should interview. If you think that there's somebody out there who has a great perspective on what the future should look like and how we can get there, send me their name, make an introduction so that I can have them onto this podcast and we can have those conversations. That is what this show is all about. So here we are trying to build that kinder future together. And I can't tell you how excited I am about this because I am too excited. This is going to be a great adventure for all of us. In the next few episodes, we're going to have some amazing guests that I already have lined up. They can talk about kindness, they can talk about cruelty, they can talk about building the future and what it should look like and what it shouldn't look like. But in the meantime, I want you to think about the rest of your day, the rest of your week, whatever it is that's in front of you. And I want you to think to yourself, how can I use my own kindness as a compass to guide me toward that better future? And so go do something kind. Thanks again for listening to our Future is Kind podcast, a podcast in search of a kinder future. Go out there and do something kind.